Well, I picked up a couple new parts for my truck. I got both driver and passenger side floor vents. Now my truck is the non-AC cab, so this being the driver's side, I do have basically a cowl vent on both sides of the truck. These are in good shape. This was an eBay purchase. They're really in pretty good shape. They're dirty. They're scuffed up a little bit. But other than that, they're in pretty good shape. The biggest problem I have is they're the wrong color. The rest of my interior is black. So I have some black paint that's specifically for plastic. But the first thing we're going to do, we're going to disassemble these, clean them up with some soap and water, get a scrub brush, really get down into the texture of the plastic, get all that grease and grime and crud and all that out of there. And then we're going to sand them, or I got some red Scotch-Brite. We're going to scuff them up a little bit. Around some of these areas, I will probably need, I've got some 300 grit sandpaper. Right in there is a pretty good scuff. I'll probably take that 300 grit sandpaper and smooth those out a little bit. I don't want to do it to the whole thing because of the texture that's on there, and it matches the door panels and the rest of the interior pieces that I have. So let's get these taken apart, and then we'll clean them, and then we'll paint them. So getting the little flapper valve out of these panels is really quite easy. Let me show you how to do it real quick. So we're on the front. This is facing inside the cab. We take the little arm, we just got to pull it up and off its little hook, and then we can pull that out. So now we turn it over. Let me check, make sure that you can still see this. Okay. So this piece here looks like it's threaded, and that's because it is threaded, but you don't really need to worry about that too much. All you have to do is this little speed clip thing, you push it like that. Okay? Let me reset it and do it again. Just push it just like that. And now this little piece right here should just pull out like that. Just slides in and out. By pushing that, it locks it in place. So you throw that back, you slide that out, you kind of twist this a little bit, kind of keep it a little bit straight, then pull at a slight angle, and it just comes out just like that. So I got the panel scrubbed down with some degreaser and a bristle brush, and so now I'm going to take this red Scotch-Brite and I'm going to go over the whole thing, just to kind of clean it up a little bit more, get any little bit of residue that's still on there, some grease and dirt and stuff that may have been caught in the texture, and more importantly, to give the piece some tooth for the paint to stick to. Now this is obviously textured around here, but inside where the flapper sits, it's completely smooth. So this really needs to be scrubbed pretty well so it'll have some texture for the paint to stick to. So after that, we'll clean it with some alcohol and it should be ready to paint. Now, I looked in my catalogs for all the different vendors that I usually go to. This was the only piece that I was able to find as a reproduction. Now this is the passenger side. I was not able to find the driver's side. Now they only come in black, which works for me because I'm going to paint it black. I need black pieces. But they're expensive. They're like 80 bucks. For this, just this was 80 bucks. And then the little flapper thing was like $15 or $20. And then the handle was like $10. So you're talking like $100 plus with shipping and all that just for this one panel, and I paid $40 for the pair of these on eBay. So I think I got a pretty good deal. So I'm going to keep scrubbing on these, get them roughed up a little bit, and then we'll throw some paint on them. I believe I failed to mention this earlier in the video. This has a self-adhesive piece of weather stripping on there. It's just foam weather stripping that has an adhesive on one side. This is all squished. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but that's pretty squished out and it's dry. So that's gonna get replaced. I'm just gonna pull it out. It comes out in chunks. Get that all cleaned off. I'll go to the parts store, I'll pick up some new foam weather stripping and we'll replace that as well. So I have that old weather stripping pretty well removed. This is as far as I'm going to take it. If this affects the adhesive in any way, it's really not that big a deal because remember, this gets sandwiched between the panel itself and the cab of the truck. So that alone is going to hold it in place just enough. So just getting the boogers off with the wire brush worked just fine. So, and you can see, I still haven't painted it. And I even haven't cleaned it after I scrubbed it with the Scotch-Brite, because you saw how hard I was having to press down on this on the table to be able to scrub this weather stripping off of there, and I didn't want to do that later on in the process once this side is painted and I have a finished surface. I didn't want to risk damaging my new surface trying to get that old weather stripping off of there. So we'll clean this up with some alcohol and then we're ready to paint. Okay, so here's the paint that I'm using. It's a Krylon gloss black paint. Let's see. There's the gloss black. The instructions are a little unclear. It says dry to the touch in 15 minutes or less. Handle after 1 hour. Apply additional coats before 24 hours or after 7 days. So basically, I'm just going to give it 15 minutes in between coats, maybe 20. It's a little chilly out here, probably 55 degrees. And we'll just paint it. I've got it flipped over right now because I basically, just this little radius right here, I want to get that covered. The rest of the back, I'm not going to paint it. So I'm going to paint just this area right in there and then flip it over and we'll coat the whole thing. Okay, so I'm happy with that. It's pretty well covered just around that radius where I could flip it over and I can just spray on the inside right in there. So go ahead and flip that over and just start hosing the rest of it. So the paint's fully cured and we're ready to reassemble this thing. So like I said earlier, I was going to put new foam on here and I went to the parts store and got some new foam. It's 5/16 of an inch on the thickness and then 3/4 of an inch wide, and then it's, the whole roll is 10 feet long. So we'll get this put here on the back side, get that stuck on there, reassemble it, and then we're ready to put it in the truck. So I have the passenger side of the truck finished up. I installed the upper kick panel portion with the vent. I didn't film it because it's really very simple. You're just putting screws in existing holes and snugging them down. But the driver's side's a little bit different. We have the parking brake to contend with. Our panel will not slide into this space right here. Even with the parking brake, even if I release it, I still can't get the panel up in there without having to move the parking brake itself. So 3 bolts that we need to address. There's that one right there in the center of the screen. And then there's a bolt, but they're captured bolts in the bracket itself. So you don't need to put a wrench or a ratchet or anything on this side. You just have to get to it from under the hood. So let's go under the hood and I'll show you those 2 nuts. So here's the 2 nuts that we need to remove. This one right here and the one just above it. And to give you a reference to its location, it's basically directly underneath the wiper motor. And then it's immediately to the right, or the driver's side, of this factory hole where the wiring harness connected through that hole. So we'll pull these 2 out. We'll pull the one out from inside the cab, and then we should have the parking brake at least swung out of the way. It's going to be it's kind of tricky to actually remove it, to disconnect the line. So I hope I don't have to do that. I don't think I have to do that. But if I do, then I'll show you that as well. But let's at least get these nuts and bolts removed and see if we can get that panel in place. Alright, so with the parking brake loosened, I think I just have enough room to get this panel installed. So let's give it a shot. So far so good. I'm getting caught up on some ground wires that I have back there. See if I can fish those out of the way. So it's probably hard to see in the video, but I've got the bottom into the vent hole. So now I'm just trying to work the top into the hole as well. There we go. There we are. Alright. Now we just got to put some hardware in there. Well, that's it. Everything's fully installed. And I actually just got back from taking it for a little short ride around the neighborhood. Took it out on the freeway. Basically what I wanted to know is how much this would reduce the cabin noise, because I was actually a little bit upset because it was real noisy in here even after I put this sound deadening material down. And putting these panels in made all the difference in the world. I mean, it is really nice and quiet inside the truck now. So that's it. This little portion of the project's all finished, so I appreciate y'all watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe.